If you had to change, anything in the school system, or to help families, like what's one change that could really help those teachers, those schools and families?
I mean, it's one of the things I actually put forth at the council as there's no, well, so I'll say two things. I
Okay.
did have a proposal at the council that I'll get into, but I always say, it's very hard to demand PGCPS to be everything: caregiver, provider, and teacher, right? So strong families allow kids to prosper in public school. And so we're all interconnected in how our children do. It's two things. On the school side, it's everything that impacts that child at home. So I can't just say there's one thing that'll improve everything, but if you're looking for like an immediate action, I put a resolution in front of the council to actually ban cell phones in K through 12. And it's up to now that passed the council, and it's up to the Board of Education and the superintendent to enact that. Children, these things, man, I don't know. There's a lot of good, but there's a lot of bad with our children. And the reality is, the bullying doesn't stop when you come home. I had parents concerned about my bill saying, well, I can't contact my child with a certain situation. 9 times out of 10, you wouldn't be able to contact your child anyway in an emergency. If the phone's ringing and there's an active shooter, now your child's getting known that they're in the room hiding because the phone's buzzing.
Right.
And then number two, if you're always concerned, you can always put an Apple tag on your child, right, with no sound, and know where your kid is. And the reality is, what's going to happen when your child makes that one mistake and it's an embarrassing moment and another child films it and it's living in reality for that child forever. Like, what's that doing to your kid, right? And so I really think that phones in our schools are not working. There's been amazing studies. There's actually been a couple of great examples, one in Detroit and others where they got rid of it. It was rough for the first 2-3 months. The kids loved it in the end. They loved it in the end. And they learned how to talk to each other, have great breaks at lunch, and really socialize. And I think as a leader, for me, even as a younger leader in our county, and even someone that hasn't experienced parenting directly yet, but for example, I'm taking my nephews tomorrow. I'm super excited, but I'm an auntie a lot. I'm an auntie to a lot of kids. I tell people will say, like, you don't have kids, so what makes you think, I don't own, I don't own utility companies, but I regulate them. I don't own a lot of stuff. Like 89% of the things I vote on and make an opinion on for the public, I don't actually have a direct stake in, right? So what makes it different in this? I live with your kids. And I see that. I think it's just really needed. So I think that is, and the data supports that bill. And that's why that bill was almost unanimous, I believe, at the council.
One thing I want to say is a doctor is not sick, but the doctor is treating you. So.
Exactly. And so but obviously your child is your most precious thing. So I understand some parents and some groups of the anxiety with the technology leaving the child's hand. But that's why I think it's amazing. Maryland is not an innovator in this space. You can go look at other schools across the country that have already done it, and they're seeing wins academically, socially, bullying, everything, even crime-wise. So as state's attorney, right, when I have kids that are dealing with not only truancy, so they're skipping school, but they're engaging in drugs and other criminal activities. How do you think they're communicating? It's the phone. And let me tell you this, as a defense attorney, I had a young client who just turned 18. The crime happened when they were 17. They also tell on themselves all through the phone.
Yeah.
And the subpoena,
even adults
they
do.
think they're so slick. We got a subpoena. You did what you said you did, and it was all an Instagram domestic message. So it's also not even protecting your children in the sense of, like, your child made a mistake and you don't want caught up in the justice system. Well, if I'm the prosecutor and I'm trying to get to the heart of what the crime occurred, I am going to subpoena the phone. Right? And I'm going to actually pin drop the phone where you were to validate to a jury that you were there. So, I mean, I just get very real talk with parents and community members of what's right. And I would say in the short term, banning cell phones would be a great help to PGCPS and the county. I think long term, when a family doesn't do well, when a mom and dad can't provide, when housing is unstable, when there's abuse in the home, it doesn't matter what you're doing in school, that child is stressed.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that is, like, those are the things that we all have to realize for our children, that it takes every ounce of energy we all have to make sure they get the best that we can offer them.
So right now we're just waiting on the superintendent to pass it on.
Yeah. So when we do a resolution, when we don't have, different bodies of government have direct authority.
Okay.
The county council doesn't directly control what happens inside the building of schools. We control the buildings itself. And so your school board, which actually votes on the biggest part of the budget in the county, because the budget for the schools is the biggest pot of money.
That's true.
In the county. Okay, our county budget's like 6 million. 3 million is schools on break.
Wow.
The other 3 million, and I just say half so that the school board doesn't argue with me, because I think it's more than 3. But if you don't want to argue, you want to say, they decide on half, we decide on half.
Okay.
And the half I get, I really only decide on 1.5 billion, because by the time I pay for pensions and just building, there's not a lot to debate. So they have the biggest say on that budget of what happens in the classroom, and that is your school board and your superintendent. For those watching that want to have an influence about what's happening with kids. And I would also say our children are very regulated by the state of Maryland. So in the state of Maryland, Annapolis says, this is what you got to do with kids, XYZ. This is what you have to teach. You have to do it. So that it's really your school board, and then what Annapolis has to say on education.
Okay. I didn't know that.
You're welcome. I'm a walking civic class.
Yes.
I've been in this a long time.